What is up, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to another episode of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. I'm your host, Alex Golden, and joining me today to talk about the game of the season, Michael J. Facci. Facci, Tyrese Haliburton with the game-tying three. Giannis fouls him, hits the free throw. Giannis misses the buzzer beater. Pacers win. What a freaking game.
What a moment. What a moment. Everything throughout the game felt like a playoff atmosphere, a playoff game, and that felt like a playoff moment reminiscent of Tyrese hitting a game winner against the Bucks last year. Saved his best for last, bailing Indiana out when I'm going to be honest, I thought it was done. Tyrese saves us from the jaws of defeat. I'm still on cloud nine after that.
I mean, to be in the building for that, it's so funny because I had told you before the game, like, hey, if I'm super tired, I might head out early. I'm not sure. We can record right after the game. Just I wasn't sure how the Pacers were going to play, and I was just like, if they're getting blown out by in the first half, I might just head home. Like it's just tough, right? Working a lot of hours and stuff like that. But I was talking to Pat Boylan tonight, and I was kind of telling him about my work schedule and all that. And I said, it just there's nothing like being at an event live when it happens, and to be in the field house for that specific moment is something that I will never forget. And Facci, I can't get over it, but Reggie Miller in the building, his presence right there on the court, it's almost like the ghost of Reggie Clutch. Just went right into Halliburton on that shot. I mean, honestly, he like willed that shot. I mean, it's just incredible. And like you said, it is a moment.
It really is. It felt like, and this I don't want to say it's too crazy, but it felt like a passing of the torch type of moment for Reggie to be on the call, Halliburton to hit the clutch shot. It just felt like that was awesome to see those type of worlds collide. That type of moment that you got to experience tonight is every reason why I keep going to games, chasing that type of moment that I never get. But that's like the dream when you go to see your team play. Everybody in the stands tonight, they deserved that moment. But what made it even more, just a little bit sweeter, was the fact that it was on national television, TNT, for the world to see. After when that moment happened, I got the Adam Schefter notification about the Tyrese Haliburton three. Everybody was talking about. I had like people that I used to work with in the past texting me like Halliburton. Like it was awesome to just see everybody get in on that type of moment, and that's everything we've lacked in prime time for the last few games when we've came up short or drastically short. The Pacers showed up tonight.
No, absolutely. And I think a lot of people have said, oh no, the Pacers are on national television. They're going to get blown out. They're going to get beat. This to me is very similar to Tyrese's game winner against the Celtics last year going to the in-season tournament when he hit that 4-point play out there. And so it's just two totally different games, two totally different teams and versions of teams, but it's always Halliburton, as our friend Worldwide Wob would say. So it's incredible. He might be one of the most clutch players I've seen in Pacers history, and I know that says a
Has to be.
lot, but he just when the ball's in his hands, I feel so much better about this. If you go back, they ran this exact same play or a very close version of it against the Celtics last year. It was crazy. It was the exact same score too. Aaron Nesmith
Yeah,
misses the three, but I'm really
good
glad that
play.
they kind of drew it up for where Tyrese was going to the corner to get the shot because I want the ball in Halliburton's hands. And
Of course.
doing this play, it keeps Milwaukee from fouling when Indiana's down by three. So it gives them a chance to get a shot off because it's catch and shoot right away. There is no opportunity for the Bucks to kind of get a foul before the Pacers go into their shooting motion. So just an excellent play call. And like Carlisle said, it was, Jenny Busick kind of like set it up last year, and then Mike Weiner's made some tweaks to it. So really just a collective group effort there from the Pacers coaching staff to run this play. And, I've heard a lot of crazy stuff about this coaching staff throughout the last couple of years from fans. And
Agreed.
all I got to say is like this moment right here is just, it just tells you how important that coaching staff is.
It was a brilliant play to draw up at the end because you mentioned a normal play. Yeah, Milwaukee probably does foul. You never even get a shot off. But I felt like they had the perfect play, draw it up for the perfect occasion. And it's something that it's a play that you haven't seen. I mean, I haven't seen this year. Like you talked about, it was used in the playoffs against Boston, but it's not one that Milwaukee could have been ready to prepare for. So I think that was awesome. But also down the stretch, we saw Nemhard, Neesmith miss good looks on threes, and you start to go, oh, like why is Nemhard taking that three late in the game? Like, things like that. But you got the ball in your best player's hands when it mattered most, and he made a play just like he's done countless times this year. And after Nemhard missed that first free throw, a lot came out of me. I mean, I really was like, oh, like, come on. Like, I really, I lost faith. I did in that moment. And Tyrese just did not let us down. I think it was just awesome from just, he had a quiet game, but who cares how you start? It's how you finish it. And the way that he finished that game, 8 of his 14 points came in the final, fourth quarter, but obviously 4 of those 8 coming on his last shot. You got to love it.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be honest, Tyrese did look a little bit rusty tonight for the majority of the game. I just felt like he was trying to get his legs underneath him a little bit. I think when you don't play for 3 days after the way he had been playing so well, it's going to take some time to ramp back up. But like, the moment's never too big for Tyrese, and that's what you have to
Nope.
love about him. And people say, "Oh, can he be a franchise guy? Can he be the star of a team?" And we've had conversations about that, right?
Yep.
He's showing why he can be, one of those guys that can be a huge staple, a huge franchise player for a team moving forward. And I was talking to Chris Teneri after the game. No, he wasn't on the broadcast, but he came in the media room after Tyrese talked. And he's like, "Man, can you believe that?" He's like, I love every second of it." Chris was on cloud nine,
I
and he's like,
love
"I
that.
wish I was on the call. I wish I was on the call for that."
I
So,
wish he was too. It's
yeah.
like for Chris to get robbed of that type of moment. I mean, I even saw that on Twitter. Like, man, what would Chris and Quinn have said in that moment? And I know it's like this is the type of moments you want to hear your guys on the broadcast. The one bright side is that Reggie Miller was calling this game like compared to any other broadcast duo. But yeah, I would have loved to have heard Chris in that type of moment. I'm sure he kind of wishes he got to, talk some Pacer basketball. I know we've had him on after some games on national television before, where it's good to, have him be able to address, the fan base. But for a night like tonight, Chris, we missed you, and we look forward to hearing you again.
Yeah, I think Josh Padmore put out a pretty good tweet saying that he could already hear what Chris would say. He said Chris would say he got it, because we've heard Chris say that
Yep,
call a lot,
exactly.
and then you hear Quinn Buckner going, "Yeah," like it's just you could just already hear it and
Yep,
envision it. But it's what makes you feel at home, right? It's like when you've
it
been,
is.
away visiting on vacation for a while and you come back home and it's just this feels so good. That is what that comfort is. But regardless, just an incredible play. And let's just talk about this game for a second because Facci, this game, you mentioned it, it was like a really back and forth game. And it was like a game of runs. And it's like you're always on the
It
edge of your
was.
seat, like what's going to happen next. And, I didn't even realize this, Facci, until I got home. That last shot attempt by Giannis was the only shot
Crazy.
attempt he had in the fourth quarter. Like, how does your best
Unbelievable.
player, like, if that were Tyrese, Pacer fans would have crucified him. So,
Oh my God.
you know,
Couldn't believe that. So it's like for Giannis, I mean, this is the Greek freak. This is a guy who dropped, career high on us last year, whatever it was, 64 points, something like that. He, to have really nothing. I think he might have had like 16 at halftime or something of the sort. He didn't do much in the second half at all. But yeah, one shot and it comes in the final seconds of the game. Just crazy stuff. So, looking at things to kind of break it down for one, I thought Pascal Siakam was battling with Giannis at times, doing everything he could. I thought Giannis was on the bench for longer than people probably would have expected in the fourth quarter. But if you really, really break it down for Milwaukee's team, Damian Lillard shot 4 of 14. 11 of his 15 points came in the third.
yeah.
He scored 2 points in the fourth quarter. Giannis scored zero. And then if you go even further, Giannis, Dame, Kuzma, and Torian Prince combined for just 4 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, the Pacers defense, they knew when to tighten up, and they really did. It was like the Brook Lopez show in the fourth quarter for a bit, but incredible job by Indiana to take Giannis out of things in the fourth quarter. And Nemhard was all over Damian Lillard for, the majority of this game, doing a great job. And he has guarded him well for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give Nemhard a lot of props. I know that he did miss two of those clutch threes there at the end, but he did hit two in this game that were
Mhm.
big, and those were corner threes. So maybe the shorter threes are a better shot for Nemhard because the long ones seemed to be a little bit short. I wasn't upset that he took it because it was wide open, like you said. The free throws, though, that's the killer because it
That
feels
hurt.
like if Miles or Pascal or Nemhard are on the line, they're going to go one of two. I feel confident in
Yeah.
Neesmith making two of two. I feel confident in Halliburton going two of two, and probably even Matherin at this point. So it's just like there's those one guys that you just know that it's going to be like, yeah, maybe a little bit iffy. And so I was sitting next to Tony East, and I was like, yeah, he's probably going to go one of two tonight on this set here. And he goes, yeah, I agree, one of two. He clanks the first one. We're like, yep, called that one. And so it is devastating, but you just have to live in those moments. But you talk about Brooke Lopez, Facci. The Pacers had a Brooke Lopez problem tonight. Brooke Lopez,
He did.
I know that he's an old guy,
That
but
push shot.
plus 16 in this game, Facci. I mean, he was unbelievable. The Pacers won this game when Jericho Sims was in the game. He was a minus 17 in just
Yeah.
12 minutes. So the Pacers absolutely destroyed the Bucks when Brooke Lopez wasn't out there, but I thought Brooke Lopez really made things difficult for Miles Turner tonight. And I don't know if you noticed this or not, but Carlisle was subbing Thomas Bryant in early into the game and into the rotation, I should say, and he was getting some of those like early first quarter minutes that he doesn't normally see for Miles. And I wondered if they just wanted Thomas out there a little bit more because he was more physical.
Yeah, no, it's definitely possible. I thought Thomas Bryant played well. 10 points. The other bench overall played really well. But yeah, Brooke Lopez, I just felt like he had that push shot that he kept going in that just kept working for him. It was getting frustrating, but if that was the only answer that Milwaukee had in the fourth quarter, then hey, look, let Brooke Lopez do what he wants because no one else was getting theirs. Thomas Bryant played well, but we got to give that real credit to the bench in this game because we've gotten the mailbag questions. What's wrong with the bench? What's going on? They're awful. They're this. Tonight, the bench was really good, and I felt like Milwaukee had no answer. So it was 42 points off the bench for Indiana. You had guys like Benedict Mathurin with 17, T.J. McConnell 12 points, 7 assists, 4 steals. We talked about Thomas Bryant. I mean, those are really solid performances by Indiana when some of the starters were a little bit more on the quiet side. So tonight's bench, huge, but one of the things that we got to talk about, classic Indiana Pacer basketball on the fast break. 31-3 advantage for the Pacers. They were getting out and running. And I feel like when we talk about a game of runs, there was times that Indiana would go on a quick 10-0 run like that, boom, 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 and 31-3 advantage. And the bench, that reminds me of the Pacers basketball that we saw last year.
Yeah, they were definitely pushing the pace, and I think that was kind of part of that was by design, right? They wanted to make sure that they push the Bucks and make them run and make them run and get them tired because the Bucks are a little bit bigger, and if you try to settle and play in a half court game, they're going to really lock in defensively. I mean, the fact that Torian Prince is playing the shooting guard position for the Bucks
Yeah.
just kind of shows you how big they are with Kuzma and Giannis and Brook Lopez. Like Dame is such a short guy compared to the rest of the four out there, so it really does cover a lot of space. But I mean, they've been winning basketball games with this lineup, but the Bucks have now lost three in a row. They've lost to the Magic, the Cavs, and now the Pacers. So good for the Pacers. And Detroit won tonight. They beat Washington. So Indiana during this game was a half game back of the fifth seed against to Detroit because Detroit's that close in terms of the wins and the losses. So Indiana just kind of has to build off this. But you're right, the fast break points were huge. And you talk about the bench. I just want to bring this up because Carlisle brought it up too post game, but Obi Toppin only played 6 minutes off the bench tonight. And it was one of those things where you could just tell defensively he was in a really rough spot and they needed Pascal to play heavier minutes. That's why Pascal ends
They
up
did.
playing 37. And they even played Neesmith at times at the four tonight. And I thought that was a unique situation because they had Neesmith just like banging with Giannis for, 3 or 4 minutes to give Siakam a little bit of a
Yep.
breather because they just didn't trust Toppin in this matchup. And I know that some people really like Obi Toppin, but it kind of shows you defensively he is such a liability when Giannis is healthy that I will be
Mhm.
shocked. We've got some mailbag questions about the playoff rotations. I think this is kind of where it's going to be interesting because Obi against a guy like Giannis, like if he's out there for 40 some minutes, you're not going to see much of Obi Toppin in the playoffs.
I agree with that. I think there could be a scenario where Obi starts to play, see him 10 minutes or less, or anything of the sort. And, he's been very inconsistent. A night like tonight, it's like when I talk about how good the bench was, I ain't talking about Obi Toppin. And I think that's usually when you're saying that the bench was good, it's usually that Obi might have gave you 15 points and maybe he pulled 6 boards or anything of or that was not tonight. He was not really a factor in this game, and we'll see if it's a a sign of anything to come, or maybe it was just a matchup issue. But Milwaukee is a team they very well could run into in the playoffs. So something to keep an eye on. But I think for Siakam, we got to give Siakam a lot of credit. Got to give him his flowers. He had 16 and 10 by halftime. The 10 rebounds I was really impressed with early on because 10 rebounds for Siakam in general is great. I know he finished the game with 12 boards, but like only two in the second half. But Siakam was big down the stretch. He had, the 16 points, awesome by halftime, but the fourth quarter he saved some good buckets for that fourth quarter. Finishes 25 points, 12 boards, 5 assists, plays good defense on Giannis. I mean, you can't ask for much more. And you know how easy it would have been to say this is the second night of a back-to-back, but I feel like if you're going to lose against Chicago, you pull the plug as early as they did when they waved that white flag, in like midway in the third quarter, because you got your guys ready enough for tonight where a guy like Siakam could play the 37 minutes that you touched on, and your other starters could play about 30 plus minutes. So I also think it helps knowing that extra intensity that you're playing Milwaukee and you're going back home. All those factors gave Indiana a little bit of a boost when normally the second night of a back to back is more normally an excuse.
Yeah, this wasn't just a regular, season game right now. Like it was not one of those where like, it's game 60 whatever of the season.
Oh,
No, this
real.
is where the Pacers were locked in. They knew what was at stake. They know that this tiebreaker is still up in the air, and if they can win again on Saturday, then it just kind of like puts them in a much better spot to potentially have home court advantage. So they got up for this game. And, we talked about it. Halliburton was rusty kind of early on. I just think that Siakam kind of shouldered the load a lot early on and kind of
Did.
put the Pacers on his back and just played at an all-star level. And that's the reason why you went out and traded for him last January. It's because this is what he does. And we've talked about how do you stop Giannis? And I understand like Giannis is like a great player, right? Like there's no denying that. We've seen Giannis just absolutely torch the Pacers even this
Oh yeah.
season. But to hold him to
Mhm.
19 points on 9 of 14 shooting, like you live with
Incredible.
that every single day. Anything under 30 is like a win with Giannis because we've seen this guy drop 50 and
Definitely.
60 on the Pacers. So, 19 points feels nothing. And 17 rebounds, like, Giannis is going to get his rebounds. He's just an aggressive player down low. The 7 assists from Giannis were really important to me because the Pacers were throwing doubles and triples at him all night long, really trying to force the ball out of his hands. But it starts with that initial point of attack defense, and that's where Pascal Siakam came into play. Didn't really get himself in a foul trouble either, finishes with 3 fouls, but was able to kind of bring that level of physicality and length and defensive minded toughness that you want to see. So I just thought that having an option because we talked about Neesmith playing him at times in this game. That's a temporary thing. It's not something you want to see for the majority of the game. But the way that Pascal was able to defend at a high level and provide that offense of 25 points on 10 of 15 shooting with the 12 boards and the 5 assists, like just an incredibly well-rounded game from Pascal. And I know he had a great game against the Hawks when and then the Pacers ended up losing that one. This to me was a much better performance than that game in the Hawks, even though he had more points.
This was a complete performance on both ends. And just something to also really throw out there. Giannis and Dame came into this game as the highest scoring duo in the NBA at about 57 points per game. And they were held to it was like
37,
35 points,
34,
37
excuse
points.
me,
I'm not a
34.
math guy. Yeah. Yeah, look, we're not math guys. We never have been.
I
But
thought the
look,
five was an eight from a
this is what
distance.
it
I
is.
had to pull it up to my face to see it better.
I'm not going to make excuses. My math is bad, but what I'm trying to get at is that Indiana held these two well below their season averages, and that's awesome. Did we figure out something of how to maybe stop them? I don't know if you're ever going to stop Giannis consistently, but having a guy like Siakam against Giannis is way different than what we saw than Giannis just tearing through the Pacers last year in the regular season, even if the Pacers won those games. I think that, like I said earlier, Nemhard has played Damian Lillard well consistently. And I think that you look at Kyle Kuzma, I'm sorry, that guy's getting exposed right now. You could put up big numbers on a really bad Washington team. Tonight, Kyle Kuzma was a ghost. If anything, it was favorable when he was out there for the Pacers. He was a minus 18, and I just feel like he's just kind of getting lost in the shuffle. But the one thing I was worried about early on, it looked like Torian Prince was going to have like a career night. He had like 9 points in the first quarter. I was like, oh, come on. This is a guy who averages eight. I know he finished with 18, but it's like, hey, you know what? You could live with it if it means that no one else really had it going on. This is a great win for the Pacers, and it's funny because we have a mailbag question that's coming up like I don't know a while from now, and it was like, "What is your favorite moment of the season?" And I thought about it for a little bit. This is like a day ago when I looked at it. I'm like, I don't know, like I don't know, maybe beat the Knicks or something. That was a really good game early on, or beat Boston. A night like tonight, man, this was the top moment of the season for me.
I hope that we can top tonight's game, but I think it's going to be very
Oh,
hard to do this season. I mean, if they can go to
this
Milwaukee and like replicate this on the road, like that might even be sweeter just because it'd be on the road and you'd send a lot of Bucks fans home very upset. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this game to me was just incredible. And you mentioned Torian Prince, like, let's be honest, some of those threes he was getting were wide open looks. I mean, nobody was within
yeah,
like 15 feet of him. There was even times when Tyrese Haliburton like had the opportunity to go out there, got to guard him, and he would like, I'm gonna make sure he doesn't pass it over here, so they like leave him open and kind of stand in between two guys. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, get in front of the guy and guard him. But regardless, Torian Prince to me has been playing much better basketball. And you got to give him a lot of credit for what he's done, kind of being this defensive minded two guy that's going out there and guarding the opposing team's best player every single night. Like when Torian Prince was, in the draft, like I think a lot of people were intrigued by him in Indiana at one point, just because of like, oh, this guy might be like that kind of like 3 and D you've been needing for a while. And so he just brings some size and he gets a technical foul in this game because he didn't like a call against him and stuff like that. He plays on the edge, but like that technical foul is the difference in the game right there. Pacers win by one
yeah,
point.
true,
So, you know,
true.
you can point that out, but that's why, you gotta handle your business correctly and not get so, wrapped up with the officiating, even if you disagree. But overall, like really great game. I think there was what, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven guys for the Pacers in double figures in this one. And it was a pretty
Classic
good
Pacer
defensive
basketball.
game too. Carlisle mentioned it several times in pregame, like number one defense the Bucks have been since the 2025 season. So or the year 2025 and the year. So they've been playing at a high level defensively. So just really good to see the Pacers pull this one out. They needed this one. Hopefully, it's momentum to kind of go on this next 3 game road trip against Philly, Milwaukee, and Minnesota, and come out with some big wins here that maybe you didn't predict the Pacers to win early on. But they needed this win more than ever, and I'm glad to see them get it.
Yeah, I mean, you could look through the schedule and say like, all right, what are some of the bigger wins that Indy has gotten lately? And it's a little bit harder to kind of find them. I mean, they beat the Rockets. Rockets haven't been this. They started really hot. They've kind of slowed down a little bit. Chicago, Toronto, whatever. I guess like the Clippers and Memphis. This to me is a big win. Even if Milwaukee's kind of slowed down a little bit, you talk about where like the playoff seeding is. You had to have this. Because if you lose this game, I mean, you're sliding down. You're sliding down to the sixth spot, and the way that Detroit's playing right now, you just can't afford to lose any games. And if Indiana can split the series with Milwaukee and having won the series against Detroit, you're going to thank yourself later in April for what that might be of the tiebreaker or anything of that sort. So I think that it's great that the Pacers are back home. It's good that hey, you get a little bit of rest now. I'm not saying much, but you get a couple days off. You get Wednesday and Thursday off before you travel, before you go on, you play Philly on the road. This is a Philly team that is, no Embiid. Embiid ain't gonna be out there. Paul George ain't what he used to be. You could very well win that game, but it's gonna be another back to back with Milwaukee on the second night again. So, hey, not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's tough, but you gotta just handle business at this point.
No, I totally agree. I mean, you cannot overlook Philadelphia. It's one of those things where I said in the media room tonight, I said, you know what? I would give up or I would relive those 3 losses they had the last couple of days for this win right here. Like it makes it so much
Oh
more
yeah,
worth it. Like,
definitely.
at least the Hawks games were semi-competitive. They just lost them in the end. Obviously the Bulls game was terrible, but like if I have to go through those 3 games again to get this result in this moment, sign me up, even though it's this, it's only 1 win versus 3 losses in the record. These are moments you'll never forget. And it's one
No,
of those things that can carry over and just give you so much momentum moving
exactly.
forward in the season. It's just like the belief that they're going to have in themselves to win these games now. Like if they lose to Milwaukee tonight in a game where Giannis didn't even have a shot attempt in the fourth quarter, I think you're going to be
Not a good
feeling
look.
pretty bad about your matchup with this team. But now you feel like, okay, we missed how many wide open looks that were just like great looks? We hit 3 or 4 of those. we win this game by double digits. So I think the Pacers now kind of like they're not afraid of Milwaukee. I don't think they ever were, but if they ever had any doubt about this version of the Bucks, just maybe this season being a little bit more of a problem for them than last year, I think that just kind of got completely wiped away. I think this is going to give them an ultimate confidence that they need to play this team. And even with Giannis, we've talked about it. This makeup of this Bucks team is just odd. It's just not a. It's a very weird team. Feels
Yeah.
kind of hodgepodge instead of like this organically grown group that they previously had. So very talented players, but when you're looking at this, like this is a potential playoff matchup, you need that confidence against that team that, hey, if we can get home court advantage against that team, we feel good about our chances of winning.
Man, it just feels like if you play Milwaukee again in the playoffs, this time Giannis is, healthy. See what happens. It just feels like, oh my God, there's so much like layers to this storyline, so many like moments that are building where it's like this is getting intense. It really is. I know there doesn't need to be some game ball fiasco for there to be drama. This is like when these two teams face off, it's really good basketball that a lot of times is coming down to the wire. So it's been exciting. But one thing that we just got to focus on for a quick second is no matter what version of Tyrese Haliburton you get out there, it is night and day for Indiana. I mean, a Tyrese Haliburton that had 14 points and 10 assists, can't discount that, was incredible for this team because when it came down to the last shot, he had us. He had our back. I can't imagine what this would have been like. First of all, without Tyrese, you're not even in this situation. But say they were trying to draw up a play, like we saw. We saw the same play before that we talked about it. It was Aaron Nesmith taking the shot. He didn't make it. Hey, you got a good luck. All right, whatever. Like who's taking the shot in this situation? Is it Nesmith? Is it Nemhard? Is it Matherin or Ben Shepherd? All guys you have questions about in the end of the game taking that last shot. There's no one else you want taking that last shot than Tyrese Haliburton because he's came through time after time. So the fact that he was able to get on the court tonight, and even if he wasn't at his best, even if at halftime he was 1 of 5 from the field, he makes such a big difference for this team that there's a reason why they don't have a win this season without him. He's a huge difference maker.
Totally agree, Facci. And I want to point this out because I'm seeing this on Twitter now and I forgot about it. It's a big moment. The Nimhard corner
Pointed out.
three, they don't
Mhm.
review it. His foot was on the line.
True. What was on the line? It definitely was. Saw Bucks fans getting very upset about it. They're looking for anything they can. You're right. The foot was on the line, and sure, if they do, analyze it, they could turn that over. Hey, sometimes it happens. It ain't the first time we've been on the end of the wrong side. I remember quite a few 2-minute reports against the Knicks in the playoffs where, well, you know what? So it happens. It is what it is. Sorry,
What
Bucks fans.
what about that goaltend that they didn't call on LeBron
I
in the
mean,
17-18 playoffs?
there's just so many versions of that that is just really tough. The goaltend. I mean, yeah, there's just countless ones. I mean, there was one against the Raptors in the back in the day where there was like there should have been a foul when we lost in that 7-game series. Like, there's
Solomon
too many
Hill.
of them. Exactly. There's too many of them. Can't keep track of all of them. At the end of the day, hey, Pacers won, and you know what? Maybe Torian Prince should just keep his mouth shut. He doesn't get a technical foul, and then you don't have to worry about any of
E-
this. How about
Exactly. It's a game of inches, right? So, I love the football play. I love that Reggie Miller called it out as like, look at this football to play, like design, like what a great play. But I have to ask you because you're the wrestling guy.
oh, big time.
Oh, come on, talk to me. You told me this is one of your top five favorite intro songs, the D Generation X theme song. Tyrese Haliburton rocking some Pumas that are paying, tribute or whatever you want to call it. They're like, well, what's the right word? I'm struggling here, Fachi, but
paying,
basically,
paying, paying respect to
okay.
DX. I saw, Triple H had a great quote tweet. I mean, look, the WWE Tyrese Haliburton relationship, it just gets better like each month. I feel like they love Tyrese and Tyrese loves WWE. It's great. I saw the clip where, post game, he was like, no one's gonna ask me about the DX shoes. And I was thinking to myself, like, I would have loved to have asked because he's going like, do you know what DX is? Do you know it? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, this is
I
my
know.
guy.
I
This is
thought
my
about it.
guy. Yeah, that would have been really cool. And honestly, it probably could have went even viral or something like that because WWE would have loved to have seen something of that sort. But Awesome stuff. Tyrese talking about, hey, how he should have did the DX chop, would have been worth the $25,000 fine. That's when you know you were just a paid man. And when you're like, that's worth 25,000. Like, I should have
I
did
should
it.
have done it.
I respect it.
Yeah, Triple H basically said the shoes were magic, and I'm thinking to myself, like, are we having like a like Mike moment here with little Bow Wow?
Yeah,
Like, does
exactly.
Tyrese like get the magic shoes on because he's got the DX shoes on? Like, will these return? Let's see. Uh, I thought about it. I was glad that I was able to ask him about what that moment meant for, with Reggie Miller being in the building. Like, so to me, like, I
Sure.
was like more interested in hearing about his
Yeah.
thoughts on Reggie being in the building, and I could have maybe asked a second question about it because I did think about it. But I was like, is it really the right time to ask about DX shoes when like you had this big moment? And then he's like, no one's
Yeah,
gonna ask me about this. And then Chrissy, of course, PR Chrissy's like, Ty, tell us about your shoes. And they're like, yes, Ty,
exactly.
please
Yeah, I
tell
know. I
us.
heard that. That was
So,
great. That was great.
it's just, Tyrese has been like an open book when they're winning. Like he's talking about what he did on his vacation during the All-Star break and watching The Wire and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
love that. Love to see Tyrese in a much better mental space than he probably was at the beginning of this year. Just night and day difference for Tyrese.
What a long season. Like it's crazy because like you see like times like this, where he hits the big shot and he's the man and everybody in the arena is going wild and all this, or like, the last game he had played where he dropped 28 points, all stuff like that. It's like such a distant memory of how much he was struggling earlier in the year and like how down in the dumps he was. Like it's crazy that that was the same season as right now, but I'm thrilled for him. I'm happy. Just having him back is great. I knew in my bones the second it was like, hey, Tyrese is playing tonight. I felt like all of a sudden, like I said about the back to back, crumpled that up, threw it out the window. That didn't matter anymore. We got Tyrese back. We have a real shot of winning this game. And he proved that. It's like you're never out of it if you have a special player like Tyrese on the court that can make that happen. Very few teams have that guy, and he is that guy for the Indiana Pacers.
Absolutely. So, want to give out our awards real quick because we haven't done those in a while, and it's
That's
probably because we've been having some losses. So, obviously, I think the clutch player of the game, the Reggie Miller clutch player of the game, has got to go to our guy, Tyrese Haliburton, for the game winner, being it's pretty obvious.
no doubt about it. Beyond deserving and not even a name that can even be in the running.
All right. And for our Mel Daniels MVP, are we going to go with Pascal Siakam?
We could definitely go with Siakam. I think he carried the Pacers through. It's hard to give an MVP, 14 points in the game. Reggie, I mean, not Reggie. I said Reggie because I'm talking clutch. But, Tyrese was clutch. But yeah, Siakam MVP.
Okay. And then lastly, this is probably the hardest one, so I saved it for last. The Feisty Foster
Yeah.
hustle player of the game. Who you going with?
I think you could split that between Siakam and Nemhard. I think they were both,
Really?
I mean, there's a couple guys. Dude, McConnell had some moments. He
Yes,
had
that's
four
who I thought you were
steals.
going to say. Four steals
I mean,
tonight. Four
dude, there was
steals.
guys. Yeah, four steals. I mean, there was guys that were battling in this game. Like I looked. There was times where it looked like Nemhard had Dame like zipped up in a body bag. Like he couldn't do anything at all. But yeah, you could always give it to McConnell because I felt like McConnell was doing McConnell stuff. And we had been asking for a little bit like, TJ just hasn't really been the same this year. I felt like he definitely was feisty tonight.
Okay, we can give him the Feisty Foster Award, and we'll add another award for tonight's game. Maybe we can add this into our rotation. The Ron Artest Defensive Player of the Game Award. You want to give that one to Andrew Nimhard?
I do. I do. I feel like just if you look at it, I'd have to break it down on another time, but it's just like he's had Dame's number. And Damian Lillard might have had a really good game against the Pacers like one of these times, this season. But I just feel like for the most part, no, I'm looking at this right now. If we look at the last game, the last time the Pacers played the Bucks, Damian Lillard was 3 of 14 for 9 points. Like this is now, it's going on. It dates back to last year. And I like tonight, talked about 4 of 14. Like Nemhard has got Dame's number, and I love every second of it.
Yeah. So you said he was 4 of 14 tonight and 3 of what?
He was I think it was the 3 of 13 I just mentioned before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I
Or
mean,
3 of
look,
14. I can't remember. I'm just saying, like, that's like 7 of 20. That's like 25% shooting.
yeah, it's yeah, he was 3 of 14 last time. So
So 3 plus 4 is 7. 14
it,
plus 14 is 28. So yeah, 25% shooting with Andrew Nimhard guarding him for the majority of the game. So I can just say that, Dame Lillard, he's in Nimhell. So
He is.
He's stuck there and he ain't getting out anytime soon. And it looks like Tyrese Haliburton hit him with the Dame time again, Facci, at the end of the
He
game.
did. I saw someone like really zoned in on that clip, and like I love that. I really do. Last time Dame was really rubbed wrong about it. We'll see if we hear anything from him. I'm looking back at game one of this season. Damian Lillard in a Bucks win. No Andrew Nemhard. Had 24 points, 13 assists. Didn't shoot great, 8 of 19, but still a much better performance for him. And that is the one game that Andrew Nemhard did not play in this series. So, yeah, it's been great to see. I love that matchup. And let's see what Indiana can keep doing next time if they can tie up this series this weekend. That's a big game. And, man, I hope they can get it done. But one thing I can say, and I can say it with confidence, the pep in the step is back. Man, it's been gone for a while. It's past midnight right now, and I'm feeling peppy. I know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna lay in my bed, and I'm gonna try and be quiet to not wake my wife, not wake my daughter, but my heart's gonna be beating, and I'm fired up after this win against the Bucks. These are the times where we go, man, I love this team.
Absolutely. Facci's going to be skipping to bed and then skipping to work in the morning. I mean, this is a guy that's going to be excited to be. Are you going to work tomorrow? Are you going to be working in the big city tomorrow? Or are you from home?
I don't know when I'm going back to the office. It's just when you work from home, it's like why do I want to travel so far? So I will be I'll be yeah like you said skipping to bed, skipping to the kitchen, and skipping to my where I work at home. So nowhere to really go, just to skip around my house like Tyrese does.
Oh man, I love it. And I wanted to point out just real quick. I know you brought the pep and the step up, so I didn't want to interrupt that. I thought it was a great moment. But you talked about that game that Dame kind of like had more scoring.
Yep.
I hate to break it to Dame Lillard, but Quentin Jackson's not going to be your primary defender in the
No,
playoffs. So
no, he's not.
I was at that game. It was the Pacers almost came back and won that one in the fourth quarter after being down big, and it was just like the Bucks the whole game. Had some great cheese curds after the game too, but like it's just it's going to be different. And I think Giannis is going to take his game to like another level. Like I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know if I really want to see this matchup or not in the playoffs, but I kind of do. I just think the rivalry's there. It's fun.
yeah.
It feels more competitive than the Pistons just because the Pistons haven't really done anything yet. I guess that's kind of where the Pacers were last year, but it just feels like these two franchises hate each other so much. You didn't have Bobby Portis in this game, and I can
hmm
only imagine what bringing Bobby Portis back into the fold does because he's a very, skilled player. He's going to have plenty of rest, and then him and Thomas Bryant going at it, off the bench. Like I definitely think they're going to see some technical fouls, flying out left and right. It's going to be a very physical, chippy series. So we'll see if the Bucks' new additions are ready to, rise up to the occasion. We know KPJ is a fighter for sure, but pun
Yeah.
intended. But we don't really know if Kyle Kuzma's ready for that fight.
I don't think he is. I really don't. Like I said, I think Kuzma was hard to even remember that he was out there tonight. But yeah, it's just if Indiana's gonna play Milwaukee in a series, it's gonna be really intense, edge of the seat material, feeling like they could be, trading punches like a boxing fight. And you'd prefer to probably avoid them, but I mean, the other competition is maybe you play the Knicks, something of that. If you slide back, and I don't know, you want home court in the playoffs. If home court means you play Milwaukee, then you just got to play Milwaukee.
Yep, well, I'm ready for it, Facci. I think the Pacer fans are ready for it. And what a game, what a win, what a moment. Everyone's going to be talking about it for the next 24 hours. And, this is only going to help push the narrative for Tyrese Haliburton to make the All NBA team. So, a lot of exciting things here working in Tyrese's favor since the All Star break. And we'll see if he can continue to ride this hot wave. But with that being said, follow us on Twitter at PacersPodSTP, at Instagram at PacersPodSTP. He's at underscore FACCI. I'm at Alex Golden NBA. But Facci, if you're hoping the Pacers can keep this winning streak going against the Philadelphia 76ers on Friday, hit me with those three words.
Let's go, Pacers.